Everyone, we will bring this meeting of the Syracuse Planning Commission to order. Our first meeting of 2022. Happy New Year to everyone. We have several hearings scheduled for tonight. Each application will be announced by a member of the staff, and we ask that the applicant or the representative come forward over here to my left and provide a brief summary of the application after providing your name and address for the record. Excuse me. Following any questions or for clarification among the commission members, we will then provide an opportunity for members of the public who wish to speak in favor of the application to do so, and then similarly an opportunity for those who wish to speak in opposition to the application to do that as well. Where comments are made in opposition, we will encourage the applicant to return to the podium to address the comments made in opposition. Given the circumstances with COVID-19, we ask that you keep your mask on even during the presentation, but perhaps speak a little more slowly so that everyone can hear your comments. And with that, we will begin the public hearings in just a moment. First, though, we will pause for a moment to entertain a motion for the minutes of our last meeting held December 13th. Is there a motion for approval of those minutes?
So moved.
Thank you.
Oh, second.
Discussion? All in favor, please say aye. 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 Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? One abstention noted. And the minutes are approved. We are set for tonight's public hearings.
Okay. The first public hearing this evening is a subdivision with a companion, case for a special permit. First is R2157. This is a re-subdivision to combine two properties into one new lot at 962 East Brighton Avenue and 555 East Seneca Turnpike. Brighton Ave Gas Incorporated is the owner. Mike McCracken is the applicant. Lies within a business class A zoning district. This is a continuation from December 13th of 2021. The companion special permit for a restaurant is SP 2112, also a continuation from December 13th of 2021. 962 East Brighton Avenue and 555 East Seneca Turnpike are the addresses. Brighton Ave Gas Incorporated is the owner. Mike McCracken is the applicant. And the properties lie within a business class A zoning district. And if you could come to this microphone, or we can move that microphone to you. It's just that one.
That's okay. I'm okay. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks. Good evening, Commissioner, members of the Commission. Tim Freitag with Bowler Engineering, here on behalf of the applicant, Hospitality Syracuse, Inc. Along with me is Mike McCracken, representing the applicant for this project. As mentioned, this is a continuation of the public hearing for a subdivision and special permit for a restaurant with drive-through use at 962 East Brighton Avenue. We come tonight with some significant improvements to the site plan based on the public hearing and the discussion we had back in December. Some of those improvements are represented here on this updated rendering site plan that I can just walk through. Three key items was traffic, stormwater, and screening to the neighboring residential uses. In regards to traffic, there are concerns both for pedestrian and vehicle traffic In regards to pedestrian traffic, we have added sidewalk along both frontages with access and connectivity to the proposed restaurant from both street frontages and sidewalks. As far as traffic goes, there was concerns with the 3 curb cuts and driveways that were previously provided and shown on this site plan. There's 3 out there today, but we've consolidated the access drive to East Seneca Turnpike, so we no longer have that egress movement within the drive-through. If you may recall, I can point on this render where that was when we spoke in December. We've consolidated that movement with the one neighboring to it for full access to East Seneca Turnpike. In regards to stormwater, some concerns were presented at the last meeting about the soil strata in this location and some downstream flooding in the valley. We've reviewed that. We've progressed our full stormwater design and prepared a preliminary SWIP that will be submitted to the city. These guidelines are above and beyond those of standard SWIP and New York State DEC requirements. We are in a protected watercourse area for Onondaga Creek leading to Onondaga Lake. We do need enhanced treatment. So our system for this site got larger. It almost doubled in size. There's going to be significant stormwater improvements to the property from the existing conditions where there's no stormwater mitigation and treatment facilities on the site to now we'll have probably a 6-figure investment on site with some underground detention and storage that is slowly going to discharge the water to the storm sewer that services down East Seneca Turnpike. That'll be a reduction of flows off-site from existing conditions, a significant reduction. And lastly, with screening. So our neighbor to the west was previously screened from the drive-through with a retaining wall that has vegetation below and above that retaining wall. At a previous meeting, we presented a letter in support from that neighbor. However, some discussions at our last meeting voiced concerns for our neighbor to our north. So we've added a handful of spruce trees up along that northern boundary to supplement the buffer that's there today. A lot of that buffer is deciduous trees, so we've added evergreens to supplement some buffering for the winter conditions. And we've also surrounded the trash enclosure facilities with some evergreen arborvitaes to further buffer that neighbor. Those were the major concerns that led to the continuation of the public hearing last time. I'm here tonight to certainly address any further questions the commission or the public may have. But that is our update, and Commissioner, I'll turn it back to you for any further questions.
Thank you for the revised plan and presentation, and we'll see if it elicits some comments or further questions from the commission now.
Okay.
This is maybe more a question for staff. There had been an issue discussed about the directional signs having the corporate logo on them, which makes them not directional signs.
Makes them a sign which counts into their number and area and would necessitate waivers.
So was any consideration given to taking the logo off of the directional signs so you don't have that problem?
Yeah, here we actually have shared access to the mobile gas station in the corner. So we feel like directional signage with some type of emblem or logo for who that directional sign is servicing is in favor of this access drive. So we have kept that as part of our signage package that was submitted to the city and is included in that waiver request.
And then the drive entrance on Brighton, the city transportation planner noted that it's wider than the city max allowance. So did you modify that at all, or is it still greater than the max allowance? Yep.
So the driveway to East Brighton, on this plan, you can see 2 different shades of gray. There's a light gray and a dark gray. That light gray is an existing driveway that's utilized for the former car wash and storage facility, but also the gas station at the corner. We're maintaining that existing driveway and tying into there. We're going to be making the sidewalk and striping and signage improvements, but no asphalt improvements there. So the existing width is proposed to remain. We also need that additional width to accommodate delivery vehicles, both for our facility, but also maintaining access with delivery vehicles for the gas station.
So you're saying that the turning radius at the curb would be insufficient if you were to meet this?
To reduce down to 24 feet, that's correct.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Further questions? Any for clarification?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there individuals who would like to speak in favor of this application? If so, please do not come to the podium. Come to the microphone in the middle of the room. Provide your name and address and your comments. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the application? Please come to the center microphone, provide your name and address and comments.
Yes, Kathy Stribley, 316 Monticello Drive North. You can hear? Okay.
Louder, please.
Okay, Kathy Stribley, 316 Monticello Drive North. That's okay, you can hold them up. The applicant has made improvements to the plan, which we had asked for, and I just want to acknowledge that those are all positive. The sidewalks on Seneca Turnpike, the stormwater improvements, and the removal of the extra driveway. Can you hear me?
It's better.
All right. I actually have on 2 layers of mask, so I'll take off one here.
Oh,
Maybe that's better. Okay. I just wanted to bring up some remaining issues that I don't think are adequately addressed. They did include some trip data. It was based on the size and type of the restaurant, but it doesn't take into consideration the traffic on either frontage street, which is very high. So I don't know if these estimates are accurate. They're based on sort of generic information. It also doesn't include an analysis of all the turning issues and in conjunction with the traffic volumes there. So I believe a more thorough traffic study is warranted. But I said this last time, and I just believe that this area requires a more thorough traffic study. And I previously talked about any left-hand turning movements from either street. And when I-81 construction begins, more traffic is going to be rerouted temporarily or permanently through this intersection. And we don't know if it'll be temporary or permanent. We know it will be one or the other. I just wanted to make a comment that I didn't make before, and this is something that happens in the neighborhood frequently. People will take a shortcut around the intersection by traveling in and out. And I'm just saying that because we know this has happened, and actually probably still happens right now with the existing configuration and nobody there, but that's something for the applicant to be aware of, that they could have an internal traffic problem. I don't know, there's no way to stop that. It's just a fact of life in that area. I wanted to address the pedestrian crosswalk issue further. This is beyond the scope of the current applicant, but it's solidly within the responsibility of the city. In 2016, when Brighton Muse was under consideration and the Dunkin' Donuts, we interacted with Pete O'Connor of the DPW, and he was talking about improving the crosswalk and actually removing this right-hand slip lane and putting in a crosswalk that was signalized there. And that all fell apart. I'm going to attach that to my comments today, so you can see what the interaction was over time. When these projects fell through, the city dropped its efforts to improve pedestrian safety. But now we have the mobile, and we have the Taco Bell, we have Brighton Towers, we have Nob Hill, we have lots of people walking around there, even though one wouldn't think you would. And we really need to address this. There's time between, if this project is approved, between now and the time this project is implemented to come up with a solution so that people can safely cross over to the site. Because it's good for them, it's good for us, it's good for the city and for everyone's general safety. So that's a very important comment that I just want to make sure that that's included. I just wanted to mention interior and exterior tree planting. There are 2 trees added to the interior of the site. The species of those is questionable. I would just bring that up again. They're not tolerant of windy or harsh conditions. Maybe the applicant could interact with the city forester, come up with a better solution there. The city forester also requested tree plantings on both street frontages. However, they didn't include any on either street. They only included shrubs. So I would just like to make a comment that it would be nice if they would include street trees, even though there's a lot of utilities there. I think there's a way to fit in a little bit more in that area. And I did not mention snow storage last time, but I wanted to bring it up, and maybe this is a solution that the applicant has thought about. Sometimes when they plow, they just plow it over the curbs, downhill, wherever they can. If it's stored within the parking lot, it's much better for treatment, which is included in the plan. I don't know if that's going to be the way it's going to be done, but in many cases, we've dealt with many applicants where they will say, oh, we're going to, store it in the parking lot, or we're going to treat it, whatever. But they just end up plowing it over the edge. If they do that, they'll contribute to downhill drainage issues and endanger any plantings that are downhill. I still believe there's a lack of depth and height to the lower plantings to the resident to the east. So I'm just continuing to make that comment that I think that should be augmented. But in general, the plans are improved, and there's still some issues here. And to repeat, continuing incremental development surrounding this important intersection and entry to the city will result in increasing conflicts and congestion. Planning agencies, both local and regional, need to focus on a long-term plan for the entire zone, including all nearby planned and potential developments in the city and nearby towns. This isn't we have a large development plan in the town of Onondaga. I know it's outside of the city, but we've got so much going on there in the city and outside of the city that I just caution again the City Planning Commission in the reactive manner that we have to get on top of what's happening in this location. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there other individuals who wish to speak in opposition to the application? If so, come to the podium in the center and provide your comments.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Name is Chol Majuk. I am the district counselor. Mine is not opposition per se, but it is in support of everything that Kathy just said, especially making an emphasis on the plantation and vegetation, around the property. I think it's a public knowledge around here that, we are losing trees and plants, and I would encourage the developer to talk with arborists, as Kathy has said, to really make sure that there's a plan to replace, especially if you are going to take down the little hill there, that to the right, next to the neighbor. There's quite a bit of vegetation there, to make sure that there's a plan for it, and to make sure we don't completely get rid of that. At the same time, I don't know if this point was made earlier, because I wasn't here the last time, and it is the place is a little bit tucked away from the neighborhood, and there's trees, there's distance. People from Nav Hill are going to walk down. Also would like to make sure that adequate lighting is put in place to illuminate the area, considering that the place has pockets, and just to be able to prevent any activities that could be prevented. So the lighting and the vegetation, and obviously I don't want to repeat what Kathy has said in terms of entry and exit, making sure that there's adequate exit. As you know, Seneca Turnpike is a busy street, and making sure that is put into consideration, because eventually it's going to make its way to us, right, Heather? Right? So, and I want to be able to make sure that we don't delay anything once they come through, to push it through. And I want to thank you for having an interest in our district for your business. So thank you.
Councillor. Are there other individuals who may wish to speak in opposition to the application? If so, please come to the podium, provide your name and address and your comments. I think that might be all who wish to speak this evening. Tim, you have the opportunity to address some of these comments that were just made by the last couple of speakers.
Sure. Again, Tim Freitag, Bowler Engineering. Appreciate the comments that were voiced, both tonight and back in December. I truly believe we have a better plan and a better design because of it. So it's involvement from the community that really helps these come to light with more local knowledge. Just hitting high level on a couple of these points. Traffic. The traffic data that was provided is it's an industry standard to utilize the Institute of Traffic Engineering, the ITE, trip generation for these types of developments. That is data that's been published with similar facilities, similar traffic volumes out on the main roads, averages it, and that uses a model for us to base that trip assessment on. The findings of that trip generation summary concluded that this is a minor development and a minor access drive, as New York State DOT typically classifies it. And then keep in mind you have those trips divided amongst 2 roadways and 2 access drives. So it's really a minor highway work permit application process that we anticipate for this user. So as designed, the 2 full movement curb cuts are, in our opinion, satisfactory for this development. The concerns about the domino effect of development, the I-81 corridor detour, or who knows what the future plans of that bring here. are certainly concerns at the intersection, but again, it's above and beyond this application. We often see, planning commissions may identify, target intersections that have experienced exponential growth like that as part of their next update in the comprehensive plan. So maybe that's something that the city can do, is to identify this as a growth opportunity in a growth area, to hone in on for that next iteration of the comprehensive plan to make sure adequate crosswalks, adequate signal improvements, and future development follow some guidelines to support the neighboring community with that type of growth. Interior tree species and just tree species or shrub species throughout the site. Great recommendation about reaching out to the city forest. We'll certainly do that. We can provide a landscape plan and see if they had any recommendations to change the species of those trees. Snow storage in the parking lot. This is one we actually did think about. You get a lot of sand and salt buildup in snow removal when you're salting and sanding a parking lot. So fortunately here on the east side of our property, between our site and the gas station, we've got a retention basin and a drainage swale that we're able to push our snow up into, so it's going to melt. It's going to settle out those contaminants before it discharges to a controlled outlet structure within that area. There'll be general snow pushed around, the drive-through on the other side of the site as the wing, pushes snow over in that areas, but the majority of it in the parking field can be pushed over to that retention area. Provide adequate lighting. So agreed, if you've ever traveled out to this area at this time of night, it's very dark. Since the lights are off, the power's off, the building is vacant on the site today. It was even tough for me to pull into the existing access drive off East Brighton Avenue because it was so dark. We are proposing area lights, parking lot lights throughout the parking lot. The building lights will be on, and there'll be lights at those access drives. We've also designed the lighting. It's pretty amazing what you can do with lighting these days with technology, with the LED fixtures and cutoff shields. So we're able to provide that light, but also still buffer our residential neighbors. And then just an overall comment about including more vegetation. We want to make sure we offset any clearing. We're maintaining the mature tree growth and vegetation to the north of the property. We're supplementing that to the west. Overall, we're proposing 23 trees across this site, 51 shrubs, and 53 ground covers and grasses that are going to expand and continue to grow and occupy a lot of the landscaped areas. We're developing only about 55% of the site. The remaining of it is being left green space. The city code allows us to develop a lot more, but that's all we need. So overall, it's a really great product or great project where we can, preserve 45% of the site for green vegetation, shrubs, growth like that. So again, appreciate the comments. I'll reiterate it again because, the local knowledge and those types of comments and the focus on vegetation has brought us to a much better plan than what we were looking at last month. So thank you.
Thank you very much. We've heard from the applicant and those who wish to comment on the application either way. I'm going to ask for input from my colleagues in terms of our next step, which I think might include holding the hearing open. We appreciate the revised plan. It seems like a number of the features are directly responsive to the comments that were made at the December meeting. But my colleagues may have digested the changes very quickly and faster than me. But in addition to that, we do rely heavily upon the feedback and analysis from the city's transportation planner. I don't believe he's had an opportunity yet to see the updated plans. Is that accurate?
I have not received any updated review comments from the transportation planner.
So I would ask my colleagues if they wish to proceed this evening or defer until we have the feedback from the transportation planner or any other information that we've been waiting on. But we do have the updated application now and site plan, so
I would agree that there have been some substantial changes that go towards, that positively respond to the comments, but just to be consistent with our deliberations in the past, we've almost always waited till we had the transportation planner's comments on record. So it would seem, in the interest of being consistent, that we leave the in my view, that we leave the hearing open just so we can have his comments on the record.
Sunday, okay. Sir, yes.
Yeah, if I could just add one thing. We'll certainly rely on you guys to make that decision. But the original traffic comments that were submitted by the city traffic engineer, the biggest concern was consolidation of access drives. And we've done that. We've removed the redundant access to East Seneca Turnpike. So we're consolidating the access over there. We're back in standard with what the city typically allows, and that's one access to the roads. The unique situation here is we're a corner lot with two frontages. So that's really the waiver that we're requesting, is having the additional driveway because of access to two streets. Other than that, we're in compliance with the general standards outside of the width. But again, that wasn't I'm sorry, I won't say that, because he did comment that the width should be back within the 24 feet, but it's very common to have wide widths for truck movements. So, the improvements since he wrote those comments, I think would offset his concerns to have, further concerns with this development. But I'll just add, the unique of the site for the two frontages is why we're asking the waivers for those.
And we acknowledge the significance of the changes and their responsiveness to the comments made directly at this hearing last month. And we appreciate those changes. I think it shows good intent on the part of the applicant. And again, as my colleague indicated, we do rely quite heavily on the transportation planner's analysis and comments, and we do want to get those on record before we take final action on applications.
Understood.
So we'll continue to hold this hearing open, and the new plan has been submitted, the revised application, I should say, has been submitted to the transportation planner, correct? So we can follow up with that office and make sure that updated comments are incorporated into the record for these two applications.
And if there are any other concerns or revisions the commission would like to see, since you are holding it open, now would be a great time to express that to the applicant. If there's any other open items, such as the landscaping.
I was just going to say, given that we'll have a little time, you seem willing to speak with the city arborist about the plantings. If you did that beforehand and we could add that to the record before we meet and act at our next meeting, that would be great. It wouldn't have to be, if we were to act affirmatively, it wouldn't have to be a condition of our finding. It could already be included. So I would suggest take that time to maybe confer with him and make any changes that you see necessary. I would also say that the suggestion to maybe enhance the plantings at, I think the comment was at the bottom of the retaining wall, to increase the height of those, maybe just consider that as well, but at least to confer with the city arborist in this time while we're waiting for our next meeting.
Sure, we can reach out. Any other site plan related comments that we should work through? Delaying the vote does have an impact on the overall schedule of this project, and what the applicant needs to do is make a decision as whether to move forward with building design and start getting CDs ready for construction documents ready for a spring start. Any other changes to the site plan that you'd like to see, or we're pretty comfortable with the layout that, might make him more comfortable with moving forward with the next step of detailed design for this type of layout.
Heard comments in terms of the landscaping, the vegetation, and consulting the city arborist. And beyond that, I don't think we have any additional ones to share with you,
Okay.
but thanks
then-
for the request.
Yeah, well, that's great feedback, thank you. And then in regards to keeping the public hearing open, is there a reason to keep that open? Or since it's really isolated to landscaping and traffic, could we go ahead and close that public hearing? So again, we can, get more comfort that this plan is what we're going to be
Well,
furthering
The
progressing.
feedback that we're looking for from the city transportation planner would be entered into the record, but we would do that before the hearing closes rather than after the hearing. So that's the rationale for that.
And also, if there's any revisions as a result of something the transportation planner has to say, needs to be open to the public, as well as if you make revisions to the site plan for any landscaping.
Okay. And then,
Understand the desire to move as quickly as you can, especially as we someday soon start to head toward nice weather.
yes,
And you have more opportunity to do that kind of work, but we really do need to have those comments on the record, and there's several other points that Heather mentioned as well.
understood. And then what about the subdivision? Is there any further questions or comments on the application for the subdivision? Is that one that we, want to go ahead and finalize? That way we can work on, updating title and get that map filed with the county, or you'd prefer to do it all at once?
We always act on these separately, of course, because they're separate actions, but they're intertwined in a sense. My feeling is we should probably hold on that one as well until we have the final details for the special permit before tackling the re-subdivision. That one, I think, is more straightforward, but since it's so closely linked to the special permit application, I think we'd be wise to hold both hearings open.
Okay.
Okay, and you our next meeting will be the last day of this month, the 31st.
Just as an FYI, we may be having a discussion at the end of this to see if this commission would like to move remote.
Okay,
And regardless of the outcome of that discussion, the date would still be the 31st.
Date
So
would
it's
still be the first.
no further loss of time.
31st.
It's just whether we all gather in this room or we gather around our computer screens.
It depends on the state legislature and if they extend the allowance of public meetings to be remote. But it would be January 31st, either way.
Thanks for the heads up on that. So if it's another cold night, we don't all have to brush snow off our cars and come down here. We can just huddle around the computer screen at home or in the office.
and we might be able to see everybody's beautiful face.
There you, yes, the silver lining.
That's right. Well, appreciate your time and your consideration this evening. We'll work on our action items and look forward to seeing you all on the 31st.
And we appreciate your responsiveness. Thank you.
Before we move on, could we, I think, not speaking for my colleagues, we've looked at a number of projects around this intersection, and we keep hearing about pedestrian, vehicular conflicts, traffic, safety issues. Can we, the Planning Commission, formally send a note to whomever in the administration that we believe this is something that needs to be considered at a minimum as part of the I-81 project, if not something before that happens, whenever that will be?
Well, absolutely. The charge of the commission is you can request studies and certain other planning documents. I don't know if we can include it in the I-81 project, but I think at a minimum, based on comments from the public and the increased development interests that have come and gone and succeeded and failed, and DPW's willingness to do so previously, it would be appropriate for you to do that, and I can forward an official request to DPW.
Well, to my fellow members of the commission, I think we should do that because every individual project proponent has said, yep, that's a good thing to do, but it's not our responsibility for our isolated project. And as a former city planner myself, I agree, this is a city planning issue. So whoever we need to make that recommendation to, I would suggest that we make that recommendation.
I think there is a wealth of information on previous applications that have come before the commission for this location in particular, where individuals who spoke either for or against the application have identified a whole series of pedestrian-related, traffic-related problems that need a wider vision, I think, in order to be addressed satisfactorily. So it's a great idea.
You want to make a motion?
So moved.
Let's do that. I will second that. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Okay, we have a recommendation to make. Thank you.
The next public hearing is Z 2399M5. This is a Plan Institutional District Plan Amendment to amend the Manly PID District Plan at 1315 East Colvin Street. Syracuse University is the owner and the applicant.
Good evening.
Okay, good evening. My name is Greg Fauché. I'm an attorney with Whiteman, Osterman, and Hanna here representing Syracuse University. Jennifer Bybee could not make it tonight. She's out of town for medical reasons, and so she asked the B team to come tonight. As Heather said, we are here, well, actually, we're here for multiple reasons.
Yes.
One is to amend the district plan, one is project plan review, and the other is sign waivers. Since this is a public hearing just for the district plan amendment, if the board wishes, I can talk just about that, and then we can deal with the other issues later, or I can do it all at once, depending on what the board would like to see.
I would suggest talking about the district plan because that's subject to common council approval, and then I can switch the new business items
Perfect,
to have the
okay.
project plan review associated with this to be the first one, so it's fresh in their memories.
Perfect, okay, thank you.
Not that
So-
we would forget it.
So the proposal right now is to modernize and upgrade the existing, I'm going to call it the Lampe Athletic Complex. It's antiquated. The university has received a very generous donation of $25 million from a husband and wife, John and Laura Lally. And that is going to jumpstart this program that we're about to seek approval for. There'll be two phases of it. The first phase, see if I can talk into this thing
It
over here.
should disengage.
Oh, perfect.
So, I mean, it becomes a long arm, but
Okay.
you should be able to take it to the podium, or the
So
chart.
we have this plan here. We did this to show the existing on the top and then the proposed on the bottom. So in the existing, we have this traffic circle here along Comstock Ave, and there's actually an entrance in the parking lot there. And what we're proposing to do is build a new building right in this area. You can see it here in the orange. It'll be around 4,700 square feet. In order to make room for that, we would get rid of the traffic circle and just realign the internal road system to make that work, and get rid of that opening and put 3 parking spaces there. So, the other part of the first phase is to put in new doors along Manley. There's 4 different locations, and put a sign identifying the new name of the complex along the top of the wall. The second phase, which we expect is going to take longer, and we probably want more than 12 months if we can get it in order to be approved, so we don't have to come back, is to build an entirely new football operations center. And to do that, we're going to demolish the existing, I'll try to say this right, Iacolano Petty football wing. That will be demolished. It's a little less than 17,000 square feet. And this area here, which has a really elaborate entrance into the building, would be reconfigured. That would all be replaced by this new building, 2-story building, that's around 51,000 square feet, and realign the road to make it all work. Now, what that does as far as the district plan, and I think you all have a copy of this drawing, is the size of the district would remain the same. We would be, the setback along Comstock Avenue would remain the same. Even though we're building a new building, the Carmelo Anthony Center is still closer to Comstock than the building we're going to propose, so that setback would stay at 264. Along Colvin Avenue, we're talking about a 73-foot setback. I think the current is roughly 115 feet, so we'd be going a little closer. On the lot coverage, we would go to 15.6%. Now, if I can take a step back at this point, it would not truly be 15.6% based on this project alone. You'll see on S1000, we have these 2 areas labeled Future Building C and Future Building K. Those are buildings that were approved previously in I think it was 2013 or 15, that we never built. And they would total 28,000 square feet. So we have assumed that they've been built for purposes of the calculation, even though they haven't. So we're trying to preserve the right to be able to build those later and not have to come back and modify the plan. And the floor area ratio, the code allows for a maximum of 2. We would now be at 0.196 as far as the FAR. Again, the site's 58 acres in size. The developed open space, which is essentially all of this plus the parking lot, is going to be around 70%, maybe a little bit more. And the uses would essentially remain the same. What the 4,700 square foot building is essentially going to be classrooms for athletes, tutoring and all those kind of things. It's essentially what's done over in that area today. And the football operations center is going to be a modernization, an addition of a lot of different uses that, especially other major college football programs have, and that are really important in order to be able to recruit the top-notch athletes that the university would be after. It's not limited to just football. I mean, there will be other people that can use those facilities, but it'll be primarily addressed to football. On the parking, we're adding those 3 spaces. We have more than enough parking today. I think everybody would acknowledge that fact. And that's essentially it for the district plan. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Questions for the applicant?
All set, thank you.
Set, thank you.
We have questions for you.
I expected that.
You had a high standard to meet in making the presentation that otherwise Jennifer would have made. So thank you very much. And serious note here, are there individuals who would like to speak in favor of this application? If so, please come forward to the center of the room, provide your name and address and your comments. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the application? If so, please come forward to do that.
We do have one email in between, I don't know what to call it, but Greg, I'm going to give this to you, and it has to do with noise early in the morning and late in the morning. I'm sorry, later in the evening. So let me give this to you, and you can read it quickly and then see if there's any response that you may have. But that's the only correspondence we received regarding from the public. And Jeff passed that out to you.
So we'll give you a few moments. It's 3 or 4 paragraphs, but a chance to read through it, and we'll pause and read it ourselves.
Can I give a quick response? The university does have protocols in place as to when things should be done. I can't tell you exactly what they are right now. Obviously, we will go back and double check to make sure that we follow those. I would also point out that if I'm interpreting that correctly, that's the Hookway PID, not the Manley PID. That's the area where all the fields are over near Lancaster. So whatever they may be experiencing, I mean, we're going to be on the west side of Ensley. They're way over here. Unfortunately, I don't have a map that shows the whole thing, but I don't want to say we're not concerned about that. We will go back and make sure people understand that there are neighbors that are concerned.
And you do have the person's email there if you want to reach out to them to
Yes.
say you acknowledge
Yes, okay. Will do.
that would be helpful.
I would just point out for the record that the fields are a part of this PID.
Yeah, I was going to ask, where is the athletic center that they reference? The Ensley Athletic Center? Is it, I assume that's within this PID as well?
Which building?
I don't know, it says is it Ensley, E-N-S-L-E-Y Athletic Center?
Yeah, that's what they were talking about. They were talking about east of there.
But Jeff's saying it's still the same PID.
I'm sorry. So Lancaster, I may have misspoke. Lancaster is the road right on the edge of Manley, and Hookway's on the other side of Lancaster.
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Then it is Manley. We'll make sure we deal with that. My mistake.
And they're actually asking us to do something, which it's not us, but the city does have a noise ordinance, and if I'm not mistaken, 8 PM is the end of when people can have loud noise. So
I think it's
8 or 9.
I think it's 10. I think it's 10 o'clock, but
Calls a lot because of this. I'm pretty sure it's earlier than 10.
Yes. Yeah.
But
I would like to point out
that's
one
what
other.
we would have to point to anyway, is whatever the city noise ordinance is.
I do believe, and I can't be 100% positive, but I do believe that the commission did set a time for the lights at the fields. So I don't know that it's inappropriate to set a time for this, but this has to do with trucks backing up and the beeping.
Yeah, can I just point out a couple things?
Sure.
I would like to say, they do say, and I'm quoting now, "We have no objections to the plan, and on the whole, SU has been a good neighbor." So I just want to make
So
sure
I
that.
said it's in between.
Oh,
I didn't
okay.
say it's one or the
So,
other.
and they do raise two issues. One is the music being played inside the
Okay.
athletic center after 8 PM. So I don't know how that works unless the doors are open. The second issue is backup beepers early in the morning. So I'm sure we can deal with both of those issues. I would happily revisit the Manly PID requirements, because as we all know, they've changed over time. And I believe there were some restrictions in the earlier ones. I just can't tell you what they are as I stand here.
Here's a curveball. This application actually does require a waiver for something that apparently was not referenced in earlier iterations of this, a waiver of a loading berth requirement that's pointed out in our staff report. So the regulations require a minimum of 5 of these off-street loading berths. Apparently, this plan does not have any, nor does previous versions, and apparently previous versions and previous approvals were silent on the issue. Can you address that point?
Yeah.
Whether loading berth is needed, and if not, a little rationale behind that, so we can understand that.
Oops. Wanted to make sure that didn't fall. Yes, there have been no loading berths ever since the complex was first established. When I say there are no loading berths, I mean there's no designated area specifically for that purpose. There are numerous different doors and places where things can be brought inside. Obviously, they are all the time, and things have always functioned fine. So, you know, I interpret that as the city has never felt that it was necessary to establish the loading docks as specific things. And we continue to believe we'll always be able to do that. We're not in putting in any uses that are going to change the way things operate. We'll be able to operate the way we've always operated. And we've never required loading docks. We do it the way we have it. So we would be asking, I think what we've discussed with the zoning office is that there'd be a requirement that there be no loading docks as part of the plan.
Okay. So there, in your view, no need for such a berth, given the nature of what you might be bringing in the front door, as it were?
And the existing facilities and entrances that exist.
Okay.
They're large enough to be able to accommodate, and they're accessible.
Okay. All right. Thanks for the clarification on that. Other questions, concerns, comments?
I just checked the city noise ordinance. It's 9 PM to 9 AM, and noise not crossing a property boundary.
Okay.
So whether it's inside or not, if
Yeah.
the neighbors can hear it, it would be in violation. So I think reaching out to them would be great.
Yep, we absolutely would do that.
And you have a copy of that communication,
Yes,
right?
we
Okay,
do.
good.
Yep.
Further questions, comments?
Just as a point of information, Chris was asking earlier about the Ensley Athletic Center. It is in the Manly PID. It is an indoor practice field that's at the east end of the southern parking lot, but it is still
I think I know which building it is.
in the PID. There are a number of outdoor practice fields between this indoor field and Lancaster Avenue. But all those outdoor fields, as well as this indoor field, are within the Manly PID.
Yeah, that's when I thought it was. It was just, I wasn't certain. Mhm. Thank you.
Okay. think we are at a point now where we can close this hearing, so we will do so. We'll also pause and see if there's a motion for action on this item. Z 2399 M5 for the district plan amendment.
Move approval with a negative declaration granting the waiver for the loading berths.
Second.
Oh, lots of seconds. Okay, thank you, thank you. Discussion on the item, the motion before us.
Did you want to reiterate the city's noise ordinance in your resolution?
Except
By reference.
we incorporated, when we discussed on the record, we have a point of information that the noise ordinance cites hours from 9 AM to 9 PM, and we've discussed, and the SU administration said they would intend to direct all the people to follow that, but we would include that in our motion.
And my second still holds, or Rebecca's. Our collective second.
Further discussion? All in favor of the motion before us, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? So this is approved. It moves on to the Common Council for final action by the Common Council at an upcoming meeting for the council. Okay, thank you very much. So now that completes our public hearing docket for this evening. We have other business, and I think in the interest of both time and coherency, let's hear the university-related items together, but we can take separate action because that probably makes more sense.
Yes. And this particular, I will just move project plan review for demolition and new construction of the John A. Lally Athletics Complex at 1315 East Colvin Avenue. This is Z 2847. Syracuse University is the owner and the applicant, and it lies within a planned institutional district. I can go through this as a new business item. If this particular one is to be acted on tonight, it must be conditioned on the Common Council's approval of the district plan amendment, where the other new business items for the project plan reviews do not have that same condition. So I'll go through this one, and if there's any other information, SU is here to answer any questions. But this new business item is a project plan review for demolition and construction of the John A. Lally Athletics Complex at 1315 East Colvin Street. This is Z 2847. The applicant is requesting demolition and new construction to facilitate the modernization and upgrade of the Manly Athletics Complex into the John A. Lally Athletics Complex, and it is to be completed in 2 phases. The construction of a 2-story, 4,717 square foot building in phase 1, replacement of existing doors and entrances to the field house, and installation of new signage. Phase 2 is the demolition of the Aya Colano Petty football wing and the construction of a 51,130 square foot football operations center, removal and replacement of asphalt with grass. In addition, the applicant proposes to remove 5 signs totaling 648 square feet and install 5 new signs totaling 877.5 square feet. The overall sign area would increase by 229 square feet. It would necessitate an expanded waiver of the sign regulations with this project plan review.
I think Heather hit all the points. I'm happy to answer any questions. I've also got some of the larger views, if you want to see the elevations and the proposed signage and whatnot. I will leave it up to the board.
Let's start with questions, if there are any from the commission members on this. This is Z-2847, demolition and new construction.
I'd like to see the signs. So
We have a request to see some of the material you brought, particularly if you have something that elaborates on the signage.
it shows the scale.
First of all, this is looking at it from, I'm going to call it the south, which is Colvin Avenue. This is the entrance right here. When you're turn left off Comstock onto Colvin, then pull right into the complex. So this is what it would look like from that particular location is A. You're looking here at the football operations center. This is the portion that faces Colvin directly, and then it turns at an angle and goes off away. We're proposing a large block S there. Obviously, it's important for our branding. There will be a sign at this entrance. I have to check my notes for this sign, for that sign. The block S will be 106 square feet total. This particular entrance here is going to be I think it's 33 square feet. No. The two signs here, I think this is about 20 square feet if I'm not mistaken. The other one is going to be around 46 and a half. But the other one you can see on the bottom here, it goes all the way over because you're looking at it from a point closer to the intersection of Colvin and Comstock. This would be the main entrance. This would have a sign of around 46 and a half square feet. The plan here would be to have donor names at both locations if and when we get donors to commit. But what we're trying to do is actually get the sizes approved so that when we're talking to donors, we can tell them what it is that we can offer. So that's that view. Now, if I look at it from Comstock, this view here is from the north, again, directly from Comstock looking in. This will show you what it's going to look like at the new, what we call the Lally main entrance building. And the bottom sign here shows the signage that's proposed for that building. This sign is around 55 square feet. It's going to be on a wall that's going to be built. I'm not quite sure the total height, maybe 8 to 10 feet, and with white letters. So that would be those signs there. And then this last drawing shows a view, it looks straight, but it's not really straight because it all turns or curves. There's the block S, there's the player entrance, or the main entrance, I'm sorry. This will be the John A. Lally Athletic Complex sign along the top of the wall at the Manley Field House itself, and that's the John A. Lally sign right there that I just described.
Thank you.
Additional questions or specific points? Is that helpful? Okay.
All set, thanks.
Then I think act on this item maybe before moving on to the next one, if there is a motion to do that.
Move to approve with a negative declaration on the condition that the council approves the plan change. Oh, yes, granting that.
Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? So we have conditional approval, Z 28-47.
Okay, so let's move to new business item number 2 while Syracuse University is here. This is Z 2653M4. This is a project plan modification to modify the floor plan and elevations at 100 University Place, which is also known as 130 Smith Drive, Link Hall. The applicant is requesting to construct a 735 square foot addition to an existing rooftop mechanical room on top of Link Hall. It will house the new equipment being installed inside Link Hall, and it complies with the sub-district number 3 of the district plan, and it does not necessitate any waivers from the zoning rules and regulations.
Say a
I
few
am
words
also
about
here
this.
to answer any questions if anybody has any.
I have one question. Can you just confirm the size of the rooftop addition? In one place, I thought I read 735 square foot expansion, and I thought in another place it was roughly 4,000 addition. I don't know if those two figures were referring to
No,
the
it's-
same thing or not. They may not be.
It's 735. It's small.
Okay. That was my impression. Thank you for the clarification. Other questions for the applicant? All right. In that case, is there a motion on Z-2653M4 for the modification of the project plan at Link Hall?
Move approval with a negative declaration.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? So that is approved. And I think we have one more item for which we might need our presenter, and that's Z 2848.
Yes, this is a project plan review for Sims Hall for interior and exterior renovations at 100 University Place, also known as 100 Sims Drive. The applicant is requesting the project plan review to facilitate interior and exterior renovations to the 9-story tower to Sims Hall, and it's to enclose a parking area on the south facade and make changes to the facades in order to complete the interior renovations to the first 2 floors. It will include constructing new exterior walls on the south facade to enclose a surface area below the 2nd floor, which is currently used for parking, new aluminum windows, storefront systems, and installing signage, which consists of 2 11 square foot address wall signs and 1 55 square foot double-sided ground sign. This does necessitate 4 waivers from the zoning rules and regulations. The address sign shall not be exceed an area of 4 square feet, and they would like them to be 11 square feet for the address signs, and the other 2 is for the ground sign. Oh, page 2. Double-sided gets me all the time. Yeah, so basically signage. Yes, the details of the signage are on that 2nd page, and that would be those would be the waivers with respect to signage.
Thank you.
Unfortunately,
I guess
I
it's
do
on
not
page
have.
2.
Well, that's an existing.
Oh, okay. We will lead you.
So the signage is all basically part of the university's new signage package. Right.
And they're not very large. I mean, PID would allow for one sign at 40 square feet on the wall. We're proposing two at 11 square feet each.
I'm slow tonight. This is existing,
That's existing.
and they want the same or same?
Your ground sign is the same as all your other ground signs in terms of size?
Yeah, there are different ones, but the one our sign consultant has proposed is the one that we identified, and that's
In the photo on page 2.
79 inches by 62 inches. So a little more than 7 feet tall and 5 feet wide.
Oh, okay.
No, 6 feet tall, I'm sorry, 6.5 feet tall and 5 feet wide. It's in the upper right corner of drawing A02. Now, obviously, that's not the specific sign, that's just the dimensions of the sign.
Get back to Rebecca.
Yes.
Other, okay, other questions concerning this plan review? Case, is there a motion on Z-2848 for the project plan review at Sims Hall?
I move approval with a negative declaration granting the necessary waivers.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? That too is approved. Thank you for all the presentations.
Thank you for your attention and your patience. It's greatly appreciated.
Have a good evening. We move back to an uncovered item under new business, which is a 3-mile limit case.
Yes, this is 3S 2114, 3-mile limit subdivision review in the town of Geddes. Casamina Rosano Trust subdivision is to realign 2 properties into 2 new lots at 130 and 134 Armstrong Road. And the purpose is to convey 7,590 square feet of property from 134 to 130. Town of Geddes has approved it. It's been reviewed by the County Planning Board and the Department of Engineering.
Thank you. Are there any questions on what's involved in the 3-mile limit case in the town of DeWitt? Okay. Is there a motion for approval of this?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? The town of Geddes 3-mile limit case is approved. We continue on to other business, or excuse me, old business.
Yes, the old business item is a time extension for PR 1708. This is demolition and new construction at 1027 to 1029 East Genesee Street. The commission asked that the applicant appear and give justification for the extension to allow for the additional time. And this is the old Ronald McDonald House, if you recall. The commission approved a project site review on November 27th of 2017, and this was to demolish 2 existing buildings and to construct a 4-story building with 72 dwelling units and convert an existing 3-story building to retail. And waivers were granted with respect to density and parking. And all the improvements were supposed to be completed by 2018. The commission did approve an additional time extension on June 29th of 2020, and all construction was supposed to be completed by November 22nd of last year, 2021. So the applicant is here to give you additional information.
Thank you. Good evening. Brian Bouchard with CHA, attending on behalf of the owner, who is also the applicant. So as Heather mentioned, this was a previously approved project, and this board did grant a time extension. That extension was in 2019, and largely the remainder of that year would still kind of, within the COVID atmosphere, tough to, with banks constricting, trying to get financing. In the early part of 2020, which was January and February, the applicant actually had an offer for a potential developer to actually purchase the project and develop it. And so they kind of went through the motions in trying to offer that project to a new developer, which ended up falling apart. So at the later part of last year, in October, November, and December, the owner decided to develop the project on his own again, now that he's been able to secure bank financing within the last few months, and also has put these plans and specs formally out to bid for the construction project process to actually begin. So the contractors are providing their bids and estimates for the work. The owner has also reached out to the central permit office to discuss the intake meeting necessary to actually file the permit. And they do anticipate starting construction within the next 6 months. So essentially, there was a lot of delays in getting started. There were some options in between during COVID, but I'm here to request the extension for another year based on the reality that we have now with this applicant pursuing to construct it and hopefully start construction within the next 6 months.
So the financing commitment is a solid commitment?
Correct, yes. Yep. And again, the plans and specs had sat on the shelf, even at my last ask of you to extend it because of sort of just needing the approvals to be extended, but kind of still dancing on glass in terms of what the actual outcome would be for starting construction. And now they're committed to putting it out to bid. They have bids in to select a contractor and hopefully submitting that building permit within the next few weeks once we can schedule an intake meeting. So definitely is, a path to the finish line, if you will, this time in requesting this, another extension, obviously, from this board, and also the extension that we were granted last Thursday for the zoning board related application. That's a companion piece to this too.
Okay, thank you. Questions for the applicant?
You said you're out to bid and you're reviewing bids right now?
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you. All set.
Okay. And in that case, is there a motion on the time extension request for PR 17-08?
Move approval with a negative. Do I need? Negative.
Second.
Discussion on the motion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? The time extension request is approved.
Another thought along these lines, because we keep coming back to these extensions. Can we, if we choose, adopt an official policy that says maybe not the number of extensions, but if something isn't, you can have whatever number of extensions up to a total of 5 years from the initial approval date, or some year. I'm just using that as an example. And then that way, everybody knows upfront, that's what our policy is. And then after that, you resubmit because enough time has gone by that circumstances on the ground might be different.
Yes, if you would like to think about that policy, and I can also talk to the law department, and you can come up with specifics addressing the concerns about the length and the fact that the community character may change during a certain time period. I think that would be appropriate. So if you'd like to craft some specifics, unless you have them right now, I can put something together and run it by the law department, and it could be presented either next meeting or the meeting after. If you want to talk about it as a group, you can talk about it next time. So I think it's important to have it in an open public forum.
How about if I draft something for consideration?
Okay? Great. Okay.
I think you're right. The relevant metric is not the number of requests, but it's the calendar, the time, number of months, number of years, whatever. I think
Okay,
that's,
I will do that.
thank you for offering to do that. We still have additional items on the agenda tonight. We have a discussion item.
Yes, we have a discussion item, and then we have a new business walk-on.
Oh.
Oh,
So,
we do have.
Surprise.
I don't know which one you want to take first.
Well, let's do the discussions.
Okay, so the discussion item is, it's a project site review that was previously approved by the commission in August of last year. It was for partial demolition, some additions and facade alterations to 517 Walnut Avenue. It was to expand a 4-unit dwelling unit to a 6-unit dwelling unit, and this commission waived parking. And it also went to the Board of Zoning Appeals because the lot width was not quite 50 feet, which is necessary for 3 or more units. According to the applicant, the building structural integrity was compromised during the partial demolition of removing the 2nd floor in order to construct the 3rd floor, and became unsafe, and it required the removal of the entire structure. So now the foundation is the only thing that is existing. And because it's now a new construction project rather than alteration, it needed to go back before the boards that previously granted permission for the 6-family dwelling unit. So that's why it's before you. It's a discussion item because it originally had a public hearing, and now that the elements have changed, it would be appropriate for you to consider whether or not to move this as a public hearing or review it as a new business item and vote on this evening. And essentially, the project has the same footprint, the same facade. It's a little bit different.
But basically,
But the footprint is not getting larger, the parking is not increasing. Otherwise, we would have automatically had this as a hearing.
so does the BZA have to look at it as well again?
They did, they looked at it on Thursday. They were looking at the lot width, and they did approve the project, which actually has more consideration at the BZA because the conditions and the hardship is not the same as previously, because the structure is totally gone. So, but it also needed to come back here for the physical construction.
They granted, I'm sorry, they granted.
They did, yes.
And it's still 6.
It is still 6, yes.
Thoughts?
basically the same
Right.
building. I see that we need to do a public hearing again.
No, I
No.
don't think so.
Capacity is still the same,
Right.
Yeah.
6 units.
Lot coverage is the same.
Yep, okay. I'm hearing consensus that we're in a position to act this evening, given the comparable nature of the new project versus the previous project that was approved. So if there is a motion for action on that, I think we can take that up right now.
Move approval with a negative declaration, because of the way we're reconsidering this. The other application we granted still applies, doesn't it?
No, I mean, it would be new.
It's totally new.
It's totally new because it's a new project, but considering, I figured.
Some of the
Right.
circumstances
Again,
are
since
similar.
saying on the record that we've now heard of the new condition of the property, but all the other factors remain the same, the number of dwellings, the lot coverage, the footprint of the building. Move approval with a negative declaration.
Second.
Discussion on the motion before us. If there's none, then all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? So PR 21-11 is approved.
All right, and the last item is a new business item, and this is for a project site review modification for new construction. This is the Wellington Apartments that is on East Fayette Street. Did look at this. This is PR 2107. This is modification M1. It's to modify the elevations, floor plans, and site plan to put a 6-story apartment building on the property at 800 to 808 East Fayette Street. There was also a re-subdivision involved in this. The commission originally approved this in June of last year, 2021, and granted a waiver of density. The Board of Zoning Appeals also granted a waiver of the
Rothschilds.
They are requesting to modify the floor plans and elevations to address building code issues. There's a letter from Sarah Associates in your packet and the new plans. As a result, the number of units is actually being reduced from 193 to 191. Parking spaces remain the same. And these modifications do not necessitate any new or expanded waivers. And Brian Bouchard from Clough Harbor is here with any questions to explain the changes in detail, if you so choose to have him do that.
I think that'd be a good idea to kind of walk us through what is
I could do that.
going on here.
Yeah, so thank you, Brian Bouchard with CHA, again, representing the applicant, who is also now the owner of this project. They've since, the approvals were granted, they've since closed on the land, we've submitted site permits and have that issued, so work is actively ongoing on the site. We also do have our foundation permit, and the last permit that we need to start the vertical construction is the building permit. The changes that are enumerated in the cover letter, we feel, are minor in nature. This is basically a result of nuances within, for instance, the building code and requiring certain fire separation. Obviously, we reduced the number of units by 2 units from what was approved, and this was because of the spatial arrangement of the units themselves. And with that final plan that has been submitted for the building permit, if you were quite literally to take the building elevations that were approved previously and put them side by side with the building permit building elevations, there are certain items that are slightly different. So right now, the building permit, as required by the review process, needs the sign off from the zoning office, and some of these, although minor, they're not identical. You know, it's really a matter, of course, of the design, where you start with the schematic designs as you're going through the planning process. And here we are at sort of the final hour, where we've been working through the building permit for the past 4 weeks, and have presented to you basically the building permit set. So that the hope would be that these can be inserted into the zoning file. The zoning file matches identically with the building permit file. And there's no issues or interpretations, you know, moving forward with the building permit review process. So things like the windows, you know, on the elevation drawings that were submitted previously, the windows in some cases have shifted laterally, you know, to make up for what's behind the window, I guess, or, you know, if there was bathrooms and things like that. So the windows have shifted, but largely, again, the volume of glazing that you see on that facade is strikingly similar to what was approved. We haven't made any gross changes to it. Same with the storefront layout and amenity space. You know, it was just kind of glossed in there for the previous planning commission approval set, and now we have a constructible building permit that has some, you know, still has glazing on it, but there's some other areas like the locker rooms that can't have windows behind them that are infilled with that same masonry material along the base of the building. Some of them got into actual, you know, the code requirements and separation for the amount of windows that you can have in proximity to a property line. And that comes back to the New York State Building Code and fire comments that we got from Chief Davis. You know, so really what I'm saying is that I think the gross change that happened was a reduction in the number of units. We basically lost 2 units as we went through the building code review process, and the plans and elevations that were presented to you are the identical plans that have been reviewed by the building permit that we'd ask be inserted into the zoning file for consistency. So, and I can answer any other specifics that you might have as well, but that's the process that we're taking here.
Parking arrangement, none of that has changed. Exact same number of parking that was there before. You have 2 fewer units than before. And what levels did the 2 units come out of?
I don't know that actually off the top of my head exactly which 2, because there are 190 of them in there. But it was kind of just shifting things around as you needed to in order to make things like an ADA compliant bathroom, which wasn't fully thought out in the schematic design that was approved before. Also, you know, it could have been like mechanical equipment, right? In the mechanical spaces of the buildings, there may not have been enough space allotted to those chases within the schematic design that you looked at before. But now knowing what our final HVAC plans and mechanical plans are, one of those mechanical chases may have had to get big enough where we actually lost that unit, right? So exactly where they were taken out of on the floor plan, I'm not exactly sure, but again, it was a reduction in the unit. So we're not asking for anything above and beyond what the commission approved before. Actually, we're adjusting it to the better, right?
So, no hearing is required for this.
No.
Okay. We are in a position to entertain a motion if someone wants to offer one on this amendment, modification rather. PR-21-07M1. I will make a motion for approval of the proposed modification to the elevations and such as just outlined.
Second.
Discussion on the motion?
With a negative declaration.
Yes, excuse me, yes. Thanks for the clarification. If there's no discussion, then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions?
I'm gonna abstain.
So the proposed modifications are approved.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
We still have authorizations.
I just have one other discussion item, if you would like.
On a roll.
No, the state legislature has allowed remote public meetings until January 15th. It is anticipated that that will be extended. We did ask the Board of Zoning Appeals the same question, and it is up to you.
Excuse me.
There's no requirement to do so, but if you so choose, given the pandemic and the surge in Omicron cases, et cetera, if you don't feel comfortable with in-person meetings, there is an option to have remote meetings. So you can discuss that. And of course, it's contingent on the legislature.
And we won't know
Won't know until
what's
the,
next until the 15th or 16th, right?
so you can make it contingent on, if you wanted to. If you don't, then you don't need to.
Let me ask a question. The vehicle for doing remote meetings is still WebEx?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Just asking.
No, there's no pressure. I just wanted to offer it because
No, I think
BZA asked.
We should have that discussion because
Yeah.
things are
Yeah.
Is there a general trend now between?
Well, the Common Council had a remote meeting this past time because 3 of their members had COVID. So it was in consideration of getting a quorum so that they could do business. So I just wanted to put it out there in case you had thoughts or desires to do that, or concerns about your own health and safety as well. So, but there's no pressure or push to do it, and no trend that I can think of.
good to raise it now. Is there, how are people leaning? If things continue as they are now, would you be more inclined to be more comfortable with a remote meeting than in person?
I don't think I have a preference right now.
I'm just wondering, is there any sense that the legislature is going to move to require these meetings go remote? I mean, I'm thinking we hold out with the in-person meetings as long as we can, and then if they say in February, it'll be required. I mean, they're saying they're not going to impose mandates, but it is the government. And what we say sometimes changes, so I'm inclined, if everybody's comfortable, to still do the in-person session January 31st, and then if there are other days ahead, we accept it, but.
I'm okay with it too, and and even if they said it was optional, I think if we had a sense of how raging Omicron is in the community at that time, if we're okay, and I know everybody seems to still be doing like weekly announcements or bi-weekly. I mean, if we have a sense that we're not a hot spot and it's optional, I would agree, double mask, get an N95.
Right.
I'd be okay with that.
The same.
Okay, let's proceed that way, and if circumstances change dramatically, as we get closer to the day, we have the option to reevaluate, but, for the time being, we will make it in person here.
All right. Okay, I promise I don't have anything else.
Sure.
Except one little detail about one of the cases, when you're ready to authorize.
The authorization
Yeah.
cases, okay. So, we've got 7 new ones, plus a couple held over
First two.
from tonight. Will give us 9 for the 31st. Is there a motion to authorize those?
I just have one detail about exhibit number 2, an existing rooftop antenna array for 918 Euclid. The applicant has not submitted photo sims for
Oh.
that. So,
It'd be good to get those.
okay, just want some.
Strongly encourage them. And the Preservation Board will weigh in on the St. Paul's.
Yes,
Yes.
to them as well.
I assumed you were, but just wanted to make sure we're being consistent.
Everything else clear on the new cases and carryovers?
Oops.
And ready for motion to authorize those?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Abstentions, we are all set with the hearings being authorized. And if there's no other business, oh, actually, before we completely adjourn, any update from our colleagues in the law department about someone joining us for future meetings to help keep us on the straight and narrow? Okay.
No, I don't have any updates on that.
Okay.
But Catherine is in our office and doing well and. Yes. Oh, yeah.
You-
So
At
Catherine,
the last meeting.
yes, Catherine is now,
Knows.
she has moved from the law department. She is now a planner with, our office.
Be gentle.
Yes. So she didn't have to come tonight.
Well, that's, congratulations to Catherine.
Yeah.
Yes, so she's enjoying it and learning a lot already, but I don't have an update right now.
Just curious. On that note then, is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hey.
Adjourn the 31st, we will meet most likely here in this room.